And the third thing which we can talk about, I have a slide on a case of how to use it. FNFunny is a comedy portal that we set up based on the US itself. We've used a lot of video clippings of stand-up comedians in the US. So there's a page for FNFunny that we created. And in fact, the success is so much that 35% of all the event registrations happens through Facebook. How FNFunny works is every weekend they have an event in the US where they record stand-up comedy. That's how the clips are created. And the third part is the method that is being discussed today. It's about creating Facebook applications per se. And but frankly, one of the key things that one needs to look at is, I just jumped an extra slide. So we have an example of this, and this is something which probably in Gaurav's virality score would be about 0.006, because this is something we created for Lenovo. Is anybody from Lenovo here? Oh, sorry. And so the idea was Lenovo has face recognition technology in its laptops. So that was the idea that was behind creating an application like this. And the idea was, okay, you can take your friend's photograph, you can play around with it, you can send it to folks. But what's probably missing is just sort of the virality factor, because it's got all of 6 users and one of them is me. But the thing is, it's still in progress. We're still trying to figure out how to really do it. But this is one example of how you could leverage it. The other application which had a little more better virality factor was the FNFunny clip of the day. It's a simple app that gives you clips every day. It's a video clip. And so these are some of the examples. So as a company, as a search and social media company, what we try and do is, when we look at our product, our audience, we try to map them into different social media channels and figure out what's useful, and whether it's developing an application makes sense, whether creating a page makes sense, or creating a blog, or whatever. There's another, so this is probably one of the things that will probably excite a lot of developers here. And this is a contest which will probably start after September 11th. Because everyone will be busy for that till September 11th in the Facebook. So this is something that we as a marketer are always looking at. Right? We have brands, there are a lot of brands. There are companies that we work with. Some of the companies include folks like Bills.com, which is probably one of the largest debt consolidation player in the US. We have Trusty, we have Lyris. In India we work with Lenovo, Acer, and Moneycard and all these companies. And the way we engage with them is we are the marketing partner. So we have managed to figure out better ways for them to use the target audience. So this is an open challenge for folks who are interested. There are 2 brands. It's US targeted, it's B2C, financial services, debt consolidation. There's another company which is US B2C, bill pay and password reminder toolbar. If folks are interested, $250 only for the good idea that we think will present to the client. And if the idea is really good, you have an option to develop it. And the good part about this contest is it's always open, because it doesn't matter how many applications you create, as long as it's something that is a brand you want to keep trying. So here you're trying Alok's idea of you create as many apps. But the idea is, as a brand, I want to be there. I've given you some new slides. Are they in the slide? Are they the old slides? In fact, there's something else which really came up, and I thought I sneaked 2 slides in, but I think I missed them out. I think that's very critical. And 2 things which, if you're, whether you're a marketer or a developer, you should definitely do is 2 books I would definitely recommend. A lot of folks might have read both of them. One of them is called Groundswell by Charlene from Forrester. That's a book. The other one is Grown Up Digital. Don Tapscott. I don't know if anyone of you read it. Grown Up Digital by Don Tapscott.
So you guys leave your email addresses on business card website at the registration desk. We'll mail you all the presentations post the event. So
okay, yeah.
So I'm sure at least the book names will come to you.
So this the second book, Grown Up Digital by Don Tapscott, actually speaks about the net generation. And the net generation, it's a very critical piece of information because at the end of the day, what we do is something that people need to really like. They're doing it for consumers, so they really enjoy it. Unless you understand the consumers, you're never going to succeed in your attempt to really influence them in buying anything. And so there was this whole 10-point checklist of what the baby boomers thought about the net generers. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with these demographic divides, which is there in the US. It is baby boomers are those folks who were born after 1965 to 1970 years, 1980. Essentially, after the Second World War, what happened is, till that point in time, there were no kids born in the US because all the husbands were away fighting wars. Once they came back, there was a whole growth. And that generation is called the baby boomers. The other guys were about between 35 and 45 today. They were, in fact, account for a lot of the successes that's happening in the US today. Because they were the ones who came into the workforce and they really built up their economy. And the net generers are the people who were born after 1981. And they are the guys who we need to target today as marketing.